some good news. Mountaineer Saray Khumalo has summited Mount Everest in the early hours of this morning, about an hour or so ago. So we are focusing on this right now, and I'm joined in the studio by Deshan Dazel and Alex Harris, both of whom have had their fair share of climbing Mount Everest. Good morning.
Morning, Dan. It's
morning,
such
Alex.
exciting news.
Yeah, Deshan, can I start with you? How do you feel when you hear the news that a South African woman has summited
It is the most exciting news. I mean, number one, it's great news for mountaineering in South Africa. It's fantastic news for women mountaineers in South Africa. And I just, the story of climbing is that there are always multiple attempts, and this is not Sarah's first time. So I'm so thrilled for her, because it's just so nice to get to the summit after so many tries.
Yeah, I mean, you and Alex will correct me, but from what I remember, Kathy O'Dowd was the first South African woman who summited in 1996.
The first South African.
South African,
yes,
who summited in 1996.
Correct.
And now Saray Khumalo has become the first African woman, black African woman to summit today.
That's correct.
Is that correct,
yes,
Alex? Okay. You summited 2005, Alex?
Yes, that's a while back, but I think that's the year.
Now, I'm told the last 100 meters are the toughest, or the last few meters are the toughest. When we walked into the newsroom this morning, earlier, we heard that she had about 100 meters to go. And I said to people, that's going to take quite some time for her to really do.
I think the last 100 meters we filled with euphoria and a sense of relief, because for the first time unequivocally you're going to make it up. I think the rest of the expedition you're never sure, and there's a lot of anxiety associated with that. You're waiting for weather, you're waiting for the window, but those last 100 meters it's going to happen. So
you seem to have a problem with your mic. We'll try and sort it out.
Sure.
And we want to hear from you, Alex, because you've been at the top. But I'm going to bring in Deshan. Deshan, in 1996, when I first met you, after you came back from that, you were part of that big crew there. Our colleague at the time, I think a former manager here at ENC, and also was at 702 at the time, Patrick Conroy, was one of the journalists who was there at base camp.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times we interviewed you from there. I mean,
every day.
Every day. The experience, of just climbing that mountain to whatever level.
Yeah. So Mount Everest is not like other peaks. It really takes a long time. And in fact, 24 years ago, can you believe it's 24 years ago now? But it took us nearly 3 months to get the flag to the top of the mountain. Now, some listeners or viewers might remember that the South African flag made it to the top of Mount Everest in '96 with that expedition. And for me, it was as a fresh new climber, I just wanted to get as high as I could. So I got to 6,500 meters. But let me tell you something, just that bit of getting to advanced base camp was quite a tough endeavor for me.
Yeah. What's the summit at what level? Alex, we got your mic back now.
It's 8,848 meters, or 29,028 feet, which is about as high as an airplane flies from Joburg to Cape Town.
Wow. And what's the toughest part? I mean, that last stretch is the toughest part, or, as Deshan has said, every little bit of that mountain is a challenge?
Yeah, I think, for me, the last 100 meters were actually the easiest part. The rest, because you're going to make it. The rest of the trip, you're filled with uncertainty. You're questioning the whole time. Have you got the capacity to do this? Are things going to work out? And that gnaws away at your psyche. And I think the fact that it's her third or fourth time on the mountain is an immense question to ask yourself. So I think she's experiencing enormous relief at the moment. I'm experiencing relief for her.
Wonderful, because she tried last year, Saray Khumalo. She couldn't make it, but she kept on going, I happen to know as well, and I've told her not once, not twice, even in the studio and outside the studio, that she's crazy. You mountaineers are crazy. it's just hard work to do that. What is it about mountaineering that keeps you going, Dish?
I think number one, it's the personal victory. It's the hope that you actually are able to do this thing. This really tough, hard. I always say to people, it's one of the final sort of frontiers of pushing yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, but all together. There's always this idea that some people make it and some people don't. But that's the nature of climbing. Is you don't actually know if you're going to make it, but it's a really worthwhile goal to go after.
Talking about making it, a couple of people have died on Mount Everest. I think in '96 when you were there, we lost a photographer there. I think
we lost Bruce Herod back in '96. Yes,
that was the saddest part of that expedition by South Africa. However, now that she's summited, Alex, the challenges are coming down, and I'm told there are dangers in coming down. After you summit, what should you not do? What are these dangers you could face as you're coming down?
So the reason the descent is the most dangerous part of the expedition is a couple. One, it's always harder moving down technical terrain than it is up because you're facing away from the slope, so it's easier to trip on your crampons. But you've achieved your goal, and it's a significant goal. So it's very easy to suddenly be out of emotional energy, be unmotivated, and be distracted. So I think she's going to have a few moments of real relief and elation, but her experience is going to temper that, and she's going to be circumspect, knowing that the next couple of hours are actually the most dangerous part of the expedition.
So concentration is important as well, very much so as you're coming down, to avoid those two dangers you've just highlighted.
Absolutely crucial. And remember now, this is at the end of almost having climbed for 2.5 months and being at that high altitude. So by the time you actually reach a summit, that just drains you of everything that's gotten you there, you know, all your emotional and mental energy. So if you leave a little bit in reserve, you probably are in a better position than those who use up all their energy and mental reserve to the top.
Now, there are those people called the shepherds, the people who accompany you up the mountain.
Yes.
Do they play a critical role as you come down, Alex?
So they play less of a role on the way down, but their role is primarily to assist you getting up, and obviously to assist in facilitating the safe passage of the ropes and the ladders through the icefall. I think on the way down they really just make sure that when you get back to your tent you've got some hot tea going, you know, which is probably going to be the best cup of tea she's
Was it
ever
the
had.
first thing you had yourself after as you came?
No, the first thing I had was an apple, and I don't like apples, but I'll never forget having that apple. It was given to me by an Indian team that I'd gotten to know, and they knew we'd summited.
Yeah, from that 8,800 meters you said, when you're coming down, where's the first stop? How many meters down do you have your first station?
Well, she's on the south side, so she'll go back to the South Col. On the north side where I summited, it's a little bit different. The geography of the mountain is slightly different. On the north side, you try and get as low as you can. On the south side, your goal is the South Col, which is the top camp.
Now, south side, north side. You're talking to somebody who doesn't know anything about Mount Everest. Which is the most challenging? South side?
Well, so Everest lies on the border of Nepal, which is the sovereign nation, and then Tibet, which is a province in China. And both are equally challenging. I mean, you see different statistics, but really a summit day on either side of Everest is going to be the hardest day of your life. End of story.
Yeah, she's just had that. Saray Khumalo has just had that. Dr. Shan, what does it mean for women mountaineering?
Oh, you know, Dan, it really is a fantastic time for female mountaineers in South Africa, in Africa, in fact, because I think there's a maturing of our sisterhood, you know, as mountaineers. In fact, just 2 months ago, we had the first gathering of South African mountaineers in South Africa, and in Centurion, and it was just so amazing to see after all these years that not only have there been female mountaineers just coming up over the last 2 decades, but that we're growing. You know, there's a growing contingent of women who are wanting to do this thing. So it really is exciting because, number one, it inspires those who want to get into mountaineering, and number two, it adds to the brain trust of South African mountaineers, especially on the female side of it.
Okay. Now, you said Kathy O'Dowd in '96 was the first South African. Let's not forget that, yes, she's a woman. Yes. She was the first South African. And Alex, you've been there 2005. So are South Africans more and more now trying to conquer Mount Everest, Alex?
For sure. They start with things like Kilimanjaro, but I think because if you think back to '96, Everest was still a mystery. It was the domain of really experts, and
mostly from Europe and elsewhere in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think since that, the process of climbing Everest has been demystified, the formula for success. And so with South Africans being allowed in the last 20 years to go to places like Tanzania and climb Kilimanjaro, all of a sudden you've got a group of people that are slowly making their way through the 7 summits, which are the highest mountains on all 7 continents. And the end of that goal is naturally Everest.
You've climbed all 7, I'm told.
Yes.
Right? Successfully so.
Yeah.
How mad are you? Anyway, well done. I mean, we're all excited, as you can feel and you can hear, you know. I happen to know Saray Khumalo as well, away from ENC in my other life. She's a colleague there as well. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of excitement. And she's really put the flag out there for women mountaineers.
She's a phenomenal woman.
And for South Africa as well. Thank you very much, both of you. And good luck, I'm sure, because you never stop climbing mountains, I'm told, once you get the bug.
No. Once the bug bites you, it's,
Thank you very much. Tesha, nice seeing you again. Alex, nice meeting you and all the best. Thanks for coming through to share this moment of excitement.